Hi guys, this is actually a serious video. I joke around a lot on this channel, but this is a very serious video about how your handbag could really save your life or the lives of other people around you. So please stay tuned, watch to the end. There's some really valuable information throughout, and I really hope that this helps someone. I hope that you never find yourself in these situations, but if you do, I hope that this helps someone. And I'm collaborating with YotaStyle on this, so I will link her video below. She has different tips that can also help. So make sure you check out both videos. Hi YouTube, Autumn Beckman here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My channel is all about luxury living on a budget, from high-end luxury handbags to the everyday luxuries of life. If that sounds interesting to you, please subscribe, click the bell notification icon to be notified when I post new videos, and be sure to like the videos that you enjoy. Today's video is pretty different from what I usually do on my channel. It is much more serious than usual, and like I said, it's all about how your handbag could really save your life or the life of someone else if you find yourself in an emergency situation. And like I said, this is a collaboration with YotaStyle. I'm a teacher. I'm going to talk about why I'm doing this video as a teacher. Yota used to be a nurse, so she's doing it from that perspective. And we both have some very helpful tips, so please be sure you check out both videos. I will link hers below so you can find it easily. Okay, let me start by telling you why I'm doing this from the perspective of a teacher. So Valentine's Day this year, we had a half day at school where we had students at the beginning, and then the second half we had emergency response training. This was specifically CPR training and what they call stop the bleed training. We learned how to use tourniquets, pack wounds, things like that. This is great training for anyone to have. It is, however, unfortunate that this kind of training has become a requirement for teachers in America, but that is the world we live in now, or maybe more specifically the country we live in. I do want to give a disclaimer right up front that I am not professionally medically trained. I don't have any kind of degrees or schooling in that, and I am not trained to train other people, but there was some information that I received that I wanted to pass along because it can be very helpful. It can save lives. And of course, if you are interested, I encourage you to take your own training, get trained by real professionals, and not just have information passed along. I learned a ton of information in the training that I won't be talking about here, and that I'm certainly not qualified to train you on. And tip number 5 actually came from our trainer that day and was specific about using your handbag to save a life, and that's where this whole idea started. So I'm going to start with some smaller things and work my way up to the heavier stuff, so please make sure you watch for the whole time. Everything throughout can be very critical depending on the situation you find yourself in. Of course, the very first thing you should do in an emergency situation is call 911 or whatever your emergency response number is. If there's another person who's available to call, have them call while you respond to the emergency so you're not delaying your response. All right, let's start with number 1, which is medication. If you have medication that you take, especially if it is critical to your health, it could be a life-saving medication, please make sure you have that in your handbag so that if you are unresponsive or there's a situation where someone else needs to give you medication, it's easily accessible in your handbag. Nobody has to wait till you get to the hospital to give it to you. Along those lines, I have 2 tips about medication. First, I carry a few different things for my back, and I carry acetaminophen and ibuprofen, things like that. Something that I would encourage you to carry, even if you feel like you don't really need it, is aspirin, because aspirin is one of the things that can really help in a case of a heart attack. So whether that happens to you or it happens to someone around you and you happen to be there, you might be the only person on the scene who has aspirin and can give it to the person right away. I like carrying my little pill case so I have everything organized. I have a little card that goes with it in my bag where everything is labeled, so I know what it is and somebody else could figure out what it is. Another tip is if you have allergies and an EpiPen is something that could save your life, please make sure you carry your EpiPens with you. Or if you have a student in school, please make sure that the school has the EpiPen, 1 or 2 of them. I know they are insanely expensive, but here's something I learned in the training the other day. We also got EpiPen training, which I've had before. School personnel are only allowed to use EpiPens on kids if their parents brought that EpiPen in and it is prescribed to that particular child. In our nurse's office, she has a bunch of EpiPens for different students that we have. They're all labeled with their names. Let's say that a student comes in and their airway is closing because of an allergic reaction, and they are right next to all these EpiPens for other kids, but they don't have an EpiPen themselves. None of us are allowed to give that kid someone else's EpiPen. We just have to wait for the paramedics to arrive, and at that point, it's possible that it's too late. It is a ridiculous policy. Personally, if I was a parent and I had a kid with an allergy and I could afford to have an EpiPen at the school, and there's another student who comes in with an allergy like that and their parents can't afford to have the EpiPen there, I would be 100% okay with an adult giving that child my kid's EpiPen and saving their life. That seems like the most logical thing to me, but legally we are not allowed to give EpiPens to other kids. So if your kid has an allergy and they need an EpiPen to save their life, please make sure your school has one, and preferably two. Second thing I want to talk about, and this stems from, I started going to the gym at our building, and because of my schedule, I've started getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go down there, and I walk the treadmill for about an hour. Being that it's 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm the only one in the gym. I'm the only one awake walking across the property. It's very dark outside, and several times, even though I live in a safe area, I have felt uncomfortable walking around alone that early in the morning, because I know that if something happened, that pretty much everybody around is sleeping and they probably wouldn't hear anything, like any kind of regular disturbance. So I found this item on Amazon, and there are actually a few of them. There's this one that's shaped like a little gold diamond. There's this that's shaped like a glitter heart. And what these are, they're bag charms, but they also have little buttons on them that you can press and it will sound a very, very loud alarm. And I think for less than $20, this is a fantastic thing to have in your bag. So you could use it as a bag charm on the outside of your bag, or you could clip it to a D-ring inside your bag, somewhere where it's easily accessible for you. And it just looks like a cute little bag charm, but it actually could save your life. So in a situation like I'm describing, or maybe you're in a situation where you're isolated and hard to find if someone's looking for you, and that could help people find you. As part of our training on Valentine's Day, we learned how to pack wounds. So if someone has an open wound from a stabbing, from a bullet, you want to stop the bleeding. And you want to use whatever you have that's a cloth absorbent material that you can move around and pack a wound. Now, the example that they gave in the training was using gauze and stuffing the wound with gauze. And you have to really pack it in hard to get the bleeding to stop. And yes, it would hurt the person with the wound, but it could save their life. So I was thinking, if you don't have a first aid kit available, you don't have gauze, or you don't have enough gauze, what might you have in your bag that you could pack a wound with? And one of those things is a maxi pad. Many of us carry these, or tampons, and those are absorbent materials that could help in that situation. I'm gonna unwrap this one. So you can use this to stuff into a wound. You can also use this if there's an open wound and you need a pressure bandage. This would work very well for that. Our trainer also talked about a situation that he has seen as a first responder at a school. There was a student with a gunshot wound to the chest, and the boyfriend used to be a respiratory therapist before he retired. So I was asking him about this, and he told me that this condition is called a pneumothorax, otherwise known as a sucking chest wound. So what happens is, in this case, the lung was punctured, and when the person took a breath in, the air would go to the lungs, but then it would go out of the hole into the chest. And eventually there's enough air in the chest that it starts to put pressure on the lungs, and the lungs can collapse. So in this case, something that can help is to have something called a chest patch. There are like official chest patches, and I will link those in the description box below. An emergency or first aid kit is good to have on hand. But if you don't have one of those, and most of us wouldn't, we learned that you can use plastic and tape it down on 3 sides, leaving one side open, and you can cover a wound with that plastic and then use the open side to vent it to let the air out of the chest. So a few things that you might have in your handbag that you'd be able to use for that are the wrapper from the maxi pad, or better yet, a little thicker piece of plastic. I always carry these little pouches of Kleenex, and you could use that as a patch. Now, most of us don't carry tape around with us to be able to tape the patch on 3 sides. However, if you do have a first aid kit, that should have the bandage tape in it, and you can use that. But having that can save someone's life because it can prevent their lungs from collapsing. And I thought that was a very interesting tip that most of us just have no idea about. So that was something that was very important to me to share with you. And tip number 5 that I have for you, and this is something that the trainer said in training that prompted the idea to even do this video, is learning how to use a tourniquet. And in the training, we had official tourniquets, and I'll link some of those below too. The tourniquets I'm listing are from North American Rescue, which is the place that our trainer recommended. He said that there are tourniquets that look just like these on Amazon, but that they will break on you. So he said to pay a little more and go with these that I'm linking below. They're around $30 each or so. But we learned on those official tourniquets, but most people, of course, do not carry a tourniquet with them. So what other things could you use? He addressed several misconceptions in our training that I want to tell you about. So a lot of us think, well, we can just take a belt off. Let's say we have an arm wound, take a belt off and just tighten it, and that'll act as a tourniquet. And it turns out that is nowhere near tight enough. It's better than nothing, but there are better things that you can use. One thing he pointed out in training was one of the other teachers had a handbag that had a strap like this on it, one of these guitar kind of straps. I'm going to take this off of my Coach bag and show you. Okay, so straps like these are very popular these days, so a lot of us are going to have these with us already. And what you'll want to do is take the strap and not loop it through like a belt and pull on it, but actually tie it. And it's hard to get it very tight on yourself, so it's best to have someone else do it for you. But you tie it in a knot and you pull it as hard as you can get it till it hurts. And then what you do is you get it even tighter. And here's the way to do that. The official tourniquets already have a little plastic stick built in that you can turn and it'll make the tourniquet tighter. But in a pinch, you need to find something else that would work as a replacement. He said a lot of people think to use a pen, for example, but when that kind of pressure is put on a pen, so you're basically trying to break the pen in half, most pens are going to break, and of course a pencil would break in half. So you want to find something more sturdy. He suggested wooden dowels that you could get at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, but most of us don't carry those in our handbags. One of the other teachers suggested a lot of people carry those metal straws these days. I personally don't, so I don't have one to show you, but a lot of us do, and that could be, if it's one that's sturdy enough not to break, that could be a great thing for the tourniquet. So what you do is put that metal straw or whatever you're using into the tied part of the tourniquet. And then once you have the tourniquet as tight as you can get it, then you start twisting the metal piece. And you twist and twist and twist until it is very, very painful, basically. You want to twist until the bleeding stops. And we all did this in training with the tourniquets. We did it to ourselves and we did it to other people, and we had it done to us by other people. When it's done correctly, it is quite painful, but when it's done correctly, the bleeding will stop and you could save a life. A couple tips on this. He said, let's say the wound is here. Old training told us to put the tourniquet an inch or 2 above the wound. He said to put it as high as you can. So even if the wound is down here, you want to put it up here on the shoulder. He also said something really funny. He said, don't put it up here. He made this funny joke about handbags that I know you'll appreciate. So don't put the tourniquet up here on your shoulder. It's not a Gucci bag. He said, put it down here. It's a Coach bag. There's nothing wrong with it, but you don't want to show it off to your friends. I thought that was funny. But we like Coach on this channel. He also said the best tourniquets are gonna be about this width, so 1.5 to 2 inches, somewhere around there. He said if you do something thin, like shoestrings or some other thin strap, that can actually damage the tissue, so you wouldn't want to use that. So thicker straps are gonna be better. He also said if you can, to use 2 tourniquets, one as high as you can get it and one a few inches lower. And that's sort of a backup to help make sure the bleeding is stopped. And the tourniquet does not come off until the person is on the operating table. The only person who takes the tourniquets off are the people in the surgery room. He said it's kind of like a water hose that's turned on. When you crimp the hose, the water stops, but as soon as you release it again, it keeps flowing. I know many people watching are gonna know a lot more about emergency response than I do. So if you have any tips for us, please leave those in the comment section below so that we can all learn, and hopefully if we ever find ourselves in a situation like this, we can help ourselves or help the person who is in need. Thank you so much for watching. all the way through. I appreciate it. I do hope this was helpful, but I also hope you never need this information. I will see you back next time with a more cheerful video. Thanks again and have a fantastic day. Bye.